My brother had an affair with our recently divorced cousin. I gave him 1 week to confess his affair or I'd tell everyone. Now our family won't even speak to each other. It was the 4th day of our family reunion at my parents' lake house. The whole place buzzed with relatives from all over the country who had come to celebrate my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. I was helping my dad with the grill when I noticed my brother Tom, 24M, slip away from the crowd, looking at his phone with a strange expression on his face. I didn't think much of it at first, but when he didn't return after 20 minutes, I went looking for him. I'm Derek, 19M, the youngest in our immediate family. Tom had always been someone I looked up to. When I was 7, he taught me how to ride a bike without training wheels, spending hours running alongside me until I could balance on my own. In middle school, when some kids were picking on me, Tom showed up and stood between me and them. The bullying stopped after that. Last year, he spent weeks helping me with my college applications, editing my essays and giving me advice about campus life. Tom married his high school girlfriend Allison, 23F, 2 years ago. They met in their freshman year of high school and stayed together through everything. He asked her to prom with this elaborate setup involving her favorite flowers and a trail of photos from their first date. When they both got accepted to the same university, everyone said they were lucky. After graduation, they had a small wedding in our parents' backyard. It was simple but perfect. The way they looked at each other during their vows made me believe that true love really existed. Allison fit into our family like she had always been part of it. She helped my mom in the kitchen during holidays, watched football with my dad on Sundays, and even joined our annual family camping trips without complaining about the lack of showers. For me, she became like the sister I never had. She helped me pick out clothes for my first real date, listened when I talked about girl problems, and always remembered to send me care packages at college with my favorite snacks. Our cousin Jessica, 26F, grew up with us. She and Tom were especially close as kids, almost like siblings. They spent summers building forts in the woods behind our grandparents' house and had all these inside jokes no one else understood. Jessica went through a rough divorce last year and moved to the same city where Tom and Allison live. Tom helped her find an apartment and get settled in her new place. That day at the reunion, I walked around the side of the house, following the sound of hushed voices. When I turned the corner, I saw Tom and Jessica standing close together near the old oak tree. Jessica was crying, her makeup smeared down her face. Tom had his hand on her arm and was speaking in a low, urgent voice. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard Jessica say something about not being able to keep doing this. Then Tom mentioned Allison's name. The pieces clicked together in my head, and my stomach twisted into a knot. I must have made a noise because they both turned and saw me. The look on Tom's face told me everything I needed to know. His eyes went wide with shock, then narrowed with something that looked like shame. I backed away and returned to the party, my mind racing. For the rest of the evening, I watched Tom act normal around Allison, laughing at her jokes and keeping his arm around her shoulders. It made me want to throw up. My mom kept asking if I was feeling okay, and I blamed it on too much sun. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I confronted Tom in the kitchen. He was getting water from the fridge when I walked in. At first, he tried to play it off, saying I must have misunderstood what I heard. But when I told him exactly what I'd seen, he sat down at the table and put his head in his hands. After a long moment of silence, Tom admitted that he and Jessica had been seeing each other for about 4 months. It started after he helped her move into her new apartment. She was emotional about the divorce, they stayed up late talking, and one thing led to another. He told me they both agreed it was a mistake afterward, but then they kept finding reasons to meet up. I reminded him of how he'd stood up for me against bullies, how he taught me what was right and wrong. Then I told him that he needed to tell Allison the truth and end things with Jessica immediately. Tom begged me not to say anything until after the reunion. He promised he would end things with Jessica and tell Allison himself once everyone went home. He said he didn't want to ruin our parents' anniversary celebration. Against my better judgment, I agreed to keep quiet until after the reunion, but I told him that if he didn't tell Allison within 1 week after everyone left, I would do it myself. I couldn't look at him after that. I went back to my room and spent most of the night staring at the ceiling. The rest of the reunion was torture. I could barely look at Allison without feeling sick about what I knew. Watching my parents proudly introduce Tom and Allison to distant relatives as the perfect young couple made my skin crawl. Every smile, every joke, every casual touch between them felt like a lie. When the reunion ended, I returned to my college dorm. I tried to focus on my classes, but my mind kept drifting back to Tom and what he might or might not be doing. A week after the reunion, I called him to check if he had kept his promise. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding tired. When I asked if he had told Allison yet, he admitted he hadn't. He said there hadn't been a right time. I reminded him of our agreement and told him he had until Sunday night, or I would call Allison myself. He didn't argue, just sighed and said okay. On Sunday evening, my phone rang. It was my mom. I could tell she had been crying. She told me that Allison had shown up at their house that afternoon, completely devastated. Tom had finally told her everything, and she immediately packed some clothes and left their apartment. She was staying with her parents now. My mom spent most of the call oscillating between anger at Tom and heartbreak for Allison. She kept saying she couldn't believe Tom would do this to such a wonderful girl. I didn't tell her I had known about it for over a week. The next day, things got worse. Jessica's ex-husband Derek, 28M, called my dad. He had suspected something was going on with Jessica for weeks and hired a private investigator who provided him with evidence of her meetings with Tom. He had confronted Jessica and threatened to tell our entire family if she didn't come clean herself. Within days, both marriages were officially over. Allison refused to talk to Tom except through her lawyer. Jessica's ex-husband was restricting her access to their kids until they could go to court to modify the custody agreement. My parents were in shock, trying to understand how their son could do something like this. The extended family quickly divided into camps, those who thought Tom and Jessica deserved a second chance, and those who wanted nothing to do with either of them. I was stuck in the middle, wondering if I should have said something sooner. My relationship with Tom felt broken beyond repair. Allison, who had been like a sister to me, was now someone I might never see again. Our family, which had always been so close, suddenly felt like it was falling apart at the seams. Update 1, it's been a month since everything blew up, and things have only gotten worse. Tom moved back in with our parents after Allison kicked him out of their apartment. This has created constant tension in what used to be a peaceful home. Mom is furious with Tom but still feels the need to take care of him. Dad barely speaks to him, which frustrates Mom even more. They argue almost every night about how to handle the situation. Last weekend, I went home to do laundry and get some home-cooked food. The house that was once my safe place now feels like a minefield. Tom spent most of the time in his old bedroom, coming out only for meals. At dinner, Dad stared at his plate the entire time while Mom tried desperately to maintain some semblance of normal conversation. When Tom tried to talk about a job interview he had, Dad got up and left the table without a word. Allison has filed for divorce. She and Tom tried one counseling session, but she told the therapist that the betrayal was too much to overcome, especially since it involved a family member. When I mentioned this to Tom, he kept repeating that it was the biggest mistake of his life and that he would do anything to win her back. I pointed out that he should have thought about that before starting the affair, which led to a heated argument. Tom doesn't look like himself anymore. His clothes hang loose on his frame, and there are dark circles under his eyes. Sometimes I catch myself feeling sorry for him, but then I remember how Allison looked when I saw her last week. I met Allison at a coffee shop to give her some books she had left at our parents' house. She's lost weight, and her eyes have lost that sparkle they used to have. We talked for about an hour, mostly about neutral topics like her work and my classes. Before I left, she told me that being around my family is too painful right now, but she hopes that someday we can be friends again. She mentioned how much she misses our movie nights and shopping trips. It felt like saying goodbye to a sister. The word about Tom and Jessica spread quickly through our small town. Now, whenever I go to the grocery store or gas station, I notice people whispering and giving me pitying looks. It's suffocating. Tom is having problems at work because his boss is friends with Allison's dad. Jessica lost her teaching job when the school board found out she had an affair with a student's family member. Last week, my parents tried to host a family dinner to help everyone reconcile. It turned into a complete disaster. About halfway through the meal, Jessica's ex-husband stood up and announced to everyone who didn't already know that Jessica and Tom had been having an affair for months and that both marriages were ending because of it. My grandmother, who is in her 80s, broke down crying, asking how this could happen to our family. Watching her tears felt like a punch to the gut. The dinner only widened the existing division in our family. My Aunt Karen, 52F, and Uncle Paul, 54M, insist that everyone makes mistakes and that the family needs to forgive and move on. My cousins Mark, 30M, and Emily, 28F, refuse to be in the same room as Tom or Jessica. They've even created a separate family group chat that excludes anyone who supports Tom and Jessica. I'm trying to stay neutral, but it's exhausting. Whenever I talk to anyone in the family, I have to carefully consider every word to avoid offending someone. When I'm with the anti-Tom group, I can't mention that I had lunch with him. When I'm with the pro-forgiveness group, I can't talk about meeting Allison. The situation has affected my cousin Lily, 16F, particularly hard. She used to idolize both Tom and Jessica. Tom taught her how to ride a bike and helped her with her math homework. Jessica took her shopping for her first school dance. Now, Lily doesn't know how to process what's happened. Last week, she got suspended for getting into a fight with a classmate who made a comment about our family drama. I tried to talk to her about it, but she shut down completely. The stress is affecting my schoolwork too. My grades have dropped, and I've missed several assignments. My roommate keeps asking what's wrong, but I can't bring myself to explain the whole mess. Tom tried to justify the affair to me, saying that he and Allison had grown apart and that Jessica understood him in ways that Allison never did. It took everything in me not to yell at him. Instead, I walked out of the room. The worst part is seeing how this has affected my parents' relationship. They used to be a team, always on the same page. Now, they're constantly at odds. Mom thinks Dad is being too hard on Tom. Dad thinks Mom is enabling him. Their 25th anniversary, which was supposed to be a celebration of their love and commitment, has been overshadowed by their son's betrayal. For now, I'm just trying to keep my head above water. I go to class, do my assignments as best I can, and try not to think about the mess back home. But every time my phone rings, my stomach clenches with dread, wondering what new family drama is unfolding. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. Both divorces have been finalized. Allison got their apartment and most of their shared belongings. Jessica's ex-husband received primary custody of their children, with Jessica getting supervised visitation every other weekend. I attended one of the court hearings, and it was brutal. Seeing Tom and Allison sitting on opposite sides of the courtroom, not even looking at each other, made it finally sink in that there was no going back from this. When the evidence of the affair was presented, including text messages and hotel receipts, I had to step outside for a moment to breathe. The biggest news is that Tom and Jessica are now officially a couple. Last week, they announced at a family dinner that they're moving to Portland, about 3 hours away, for a fresh start. Tom found a job at a marketing agency there, and Jessica is trying to rebuild her teaching career. When Tom made the announcement, he kept clearing his throat and looking at the table instead of at anyone's face. The news sparked another huge fight. Mom started crying, saying it felt like Tom was abandoning the family when they were still trying to heal. Dad didn't say a word, which somehow made the tension even worse. Aunt Karen got up and left the table without finishing her meal. On a more positive note, Allison seems to be doing better. She got a promotion at her job and has been seeing a therapist regularly. We've started having coffee together once a month. During our last meeting, I saw her genuinely smile for the first time in months. She's also taken up painting as a way to process everything. I saw some of her work, mostly dark, abstract pieces, but they show real talent. The family's allegiances continue to shift. Uncle Paul, who initially defended Tom and Jessica, withdrew his support after learning that the affair had been going on for months rather than being a one-time mistake, which is what Tom had initially claimed. He called Tom last week and told him he felt like a fool for defending him based on lies. My relationship with Tom remains strained. He calls me regularly, wanting to talk like nothing happened, and pressures me to forgive him because we're brothers. I find it difficult to be around him and Jessica together. It's a constant reminder of all the hurt they caused. A couple of weeks ago, Tom showed up at my dorm room late at night, completely drunk. He rambled about missing how things used to be and needing his brother back. I felt a mix of pity and revulsion as I called Dad to come pick him up. The whole situation has affected my own dating life. I've been seeing a girl from my English class, but I find myself constantly watching for signs that she might be hiding something. I know it's unfair to project my brother's actions onto her, but I can't seem to help it. Lily is doing better. Her therapy sessions seem to be helping, and she's joined the debate team at school, which gives her a constructive outlet for her feelings. Last time I visited, we played video games like we used to, and for a while, things felt almost normal. But then she told me something that broke my heart. She said, if Tom could lie to Allison for months, how can I ever trust anyone? I didn't have an answer for her. With Thanksgiving approaching, a new source of anxiety has emerged: who gets invited to the family celebration? Mom wants everyone together, including Tom and Jessica, saying the family needs to start healing. Dad thinks we should have separate events. Aunt Karen insists Tom and Jessica should be included, while Uncle Paul says he won't come if they're there. Everyone is so afraid of upsetting someone that no decisions are being made, which only increases the tension. Despite the ongoing drama, I'm doing a bit better personally. My grades have improved slightly, and I'm trying to focus more on school and less on family issues. But it's hard not to be distracted by the constant stream of texts and calls from various family members, each with their own take on the situation. Sometimes I look at old family photos and barely recognize us. We used to be so close, so happy. Now it feels like we're all just going through the motions, trying to figure out what our family looks like in this new reality. The worst part is knowing that things will never go back to the way they were. We can try to move forward, but the damage has been done, and some wounds might never fully heal. Update 3, it's been 6 months since my last update, and the situation has taken another unexpected turn. Tom and Jessica broke up about 2 months ago, and Tom moved back in with our parents again. He showed up at their doorstep looking terrible, unshaven, in wrinkled clothes, with bloodshot eyes. Mom welcomed him back immediately and started taking care of him like he was a teenager again, doing his laundry and cooking his favorite meals. Dad still keeps his distance, which leads to more arguments between my parents about how to handle Tom. Allison, on the other hand, is thriving. She got promoted at work again and has started dating a guy named Brian, 25M, who seems really great. They met through a mutual friend and have been together for about 3 months now. I ran into them at the coffee shop where Allison and I usually meet, and they looked genuinely happy together. Brian knew who I was and was polite despite the awkward situation. Unfortunately, Tom walked into the same coffee shop about 10 minutes later. When he saw Allison with Brian, his face twisted with a mix of anger and pain. He nodded briefly at us and left without ordering anything. Later that day, he called me and started talking about winning Allison back again. I told him to leave her alone, she's moved on, and he should too. Jessica moved back in with her parents in the next town over. She's still struggling with the custody arrangement. Her ex-husband remains angry and makes co-parenting difficult. Her older child refuses to speak to her, which is tearing her apart. Last week, I ran into her at the supermarket. She was on the phone, and I could see she was crying. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy for her. Family gatherings are still awkward, but there's been some progress. We had a barbecue last weekend, and while everyone was overly polite and careful with their words, at least there were no major fights or walkouts. Some family members seem more willing to forgive Tom now that he's no longer with Jessica, though others still keep their distance. Tom is having trouble finding a job locally because of the affair's impact on his reputation. He's talking about moving away again, which could potentially spark another round of family drama. Right now, everyone's focused on helping him get back on his feet, but it's clear that the consequences of his actions will follow him for a long time. Lily continues to improve. Her therapy sessions have been very helpful, and she's excelling on the debate team. She's still cautious about trusting people, but she's not as closed off as she was before. My own life has stabilized considerably. My grades are good, and I'm no longer letting the family situation affect my studies as much. The therapy I started for my trust issues has been effective, and my relationship with my girlfriend is going well. As for my relationship with Tom, I'm trying to forgive him, but it's a slow process. We've started hanging out again, just the two of us, focusing on rebuilding our connection as brothers. It's not easy. Every time I look at him, I remember the pain he caused. But I'm taking it day by day. The family as a whole is healing gradually. There are still bad days, still moments when the old wounds feel fresh. Some relationships will never be the same, and we've all had to accept that. But we're adapting to this new reality and trying to move forward in whatever way we can. It's not the family I grew up with, but it's the family we have now, and we're doing our best to make it work.